I've lived in the Germantown area since 1956, when my parents bought their property, their first property. After purchasing all the materials I needed to renovate my property, I went there to check on my house, and to my amazement, a fence had been erected, and the fence was part of the materials that I had put inside. After investigating further, I found out that squatters had taken over my property and the materials left inside. Once I found out squatters was in my property, I immediately called the police district, and that was when my nightmare began. And I like to interrupt by saying, I'm a senior citizen. I'm 70 years old, and that this really affects me. During these 5 months, I've called upon police, the sheriff department, several times throughout my ordeal. When all was finalized, I was left with a shell. 10 windows gone, doors gone, radiators gone, electrical plumbing destroyed, inside and outside, and house trashed. At this time, I was handed a letter from the mayor, and up until now, no one has been accountable for any of my losses. No one. I am appalled. I am outraged. This is a travesty.
These squatters have illegally turned on electricity. PECO have been out to the property at least 6 times to turn the electricity off. They have went into the box, jimmied the box open, which can cause a fire. My house is directly next door to this. I have went down and got licensed to carry a firearm, and I have gotten surveillance cameras. I have to feel like I'm living in a prison because I have people next door who do not.
A few months ago, a client of mine found himself in a battle for his own home. I had this property listed for sale, and there was a lockbox on this Frankfurt area house for convenience of showing. The seller had been spending a few nights at a time at his girlfriend's house, and after one of those stretches, he went out of town for a few days. During that time, it was brought to my attention by another realtor who attempted to show the property to a prospective buyer that there was no lockbox at the property. I alerted the seller, and the following day he went to the home, and to his surprise, there was a family living in his home. They claimed that some guy had rented the house to them, and they paid this person in cash. They showed the seller a piece of paper that was supposed to be a lease, but it had no rental amount or any other terms on it. The seller called the police, who told him that because the people had been there for more than 72 hours at that point, he would now have to go to the courts and start an eviction process. Eviction, he questioned. How can I evict someone that I never even rented to? I live here. I was away for a few days, and now I can't even come back home. He was in disbelief and out of a place to live in this moment.
I don't have to imagine showing up at my house with a stranger in it, because I did it. I stood on the street and I watched the police officer knock on the door and a woman come out and say, "Here's my lease. I live here." That police officer didn't ask her for proof. He didn't ask her. He may have asked her for her driver's license, but there were, multiple people. There were children in this home. They did not step foot into that house to see the broken window, the broken locks, the broken lockbox that were in that home 2 weeks later when I had to clean it.
She was scared. She was physically and mentally abused. I've called the police. I'm an ex-police officer. And so I did everything I thought that I could do under the rights of the law, so I wouldn't put myself, because I'm furious. She's telling me that she's being abused, and she befriended, actually these people was watching her. She goes to the store a lot. They befriended her. Let me carry your groceries in the house. This is how, from what I can give. Once in, it was a done deal. They basically moved in, forced their way in, had fake documents printed up that saying that they was her caretakers. I've been through all of that. The police wouldn't let me get these people's ID. I was upset. I got it anyway, and they said, "You can't do that." I said, I need to know who these people are. So the worst thing happened. She lost her home. She's living around the corner in a nursing home. Matter of fact, I was at the, you guys had a festival in Chestnut Hill some time ago. And I went to visit her because it's in the same neighborhood almost. And I looked at her, and nobody fought for her but me. Nobody, the city couldn't help her, the police couldn't help her. And what really hurts me is she lost her home.
The last squatter case I had, 14 months later, before they left. The damage to the building was so bad that a year later, the house is still under construction. They took every plumbing. They used toilets where there were no plumbing. They used the tub as if it were a toilet. The place was flooded. Radiators were cut. Gas lines were cut. I can't begin to tell you the amount of damage that was done at that property. We absolutely have to have Councilman O's bill put into motion quickly.
My father died in May of 2017, and within 2 weeks, the trespasser had broken into his home. The police would do nothing, and I was unable to engage legal counsel for several weeks as I was waiting to be appointed administratrix for my father's estate. So the original complaint for ejectment was not filed until mid-June, with the initial hearing occurring in July. The trespasser did not respond to the complaint, was not represented by counsel, and did not attend the hearing. So I was awarded a default judgment. You'd think it would have ended there, but it didn't. Despite this, I was not granted legal possession until this past February, 7 months later. By the time I was able to enter the property, all of my father's valuables were gone. All that was left was her trash, rotten food and maggots in the refrigerator, fecal matter, and a cockroach infestation.
I'm here on behalf of my mother-in-law, Arnashelle Ingram, who owns a property in West Philadelphia. As a retired police officer and Fraternal Order Police Union president, I urge council who's sitting on this bill to pass this bill on behalf of tenants who own property in the city of Philadelphia, where you call the police department. She's 89 years old. She's just left, the emergency room. She's trying to go back to her dwelling, where we have individuals who are occupying that dwelling who do not have a lease. When we notified the police department came to try to do their job. They asked the individual if he resided there. He says, yes, he was paroled there 15 years ago. Unfortunately, it's a relative, which is not true. So what I'm saying is that individuals who has no lease, they have no mail, and when police ran them through NCIC, PCIC, individual had no identification whatsoever, and they said that we could not evict these individuals. And I'm saying this lady is 89 years old. She wants to go back to her house where she can reside, and God forbid, God calls her home. She can live
that is living next to a person who is squatting in a house. She's a homeowner. She lives up in Bass District, and her name is Mariama by her door. And she is going through hell because the person next to her is tormenting her. She's the homeowner next door to a squatter.
To summarize, because they broke in unexpectedly, I could not turn off the utilities, including gas, water, and electric. Moreover, I paid for the cost of those utilities out of pocket. I paid for the cost of the real estate taxes to ensure the property was legally, basically, up in compliance with the real estate. I paid for every other fee that was associated with the house, the outside maintenance, the lawn care, the snow removal, and to make matters worse, the two residents who lived on either side of the property that I've known since I've been growing up, those individuals who have my contact information would correspond with me via text messages. And to show you how egregious this situation is, one of the occupants in the neighboring property, and this is a row home, middle of the block row home, said, "Hey Martin, can you believe this? The occupants are having a mattress and a refrigerator delivered, and here's text pictures, which I have on my phone, which I can leave with you, text pictures of a mattress and a refrigerator being delivered to a property that they illegally occupy." Does it get more egregious than that?
I walked in and there must have been 20 people lighting fires. I walked in, I got chased out. Eventually, the property caught fire and we had to demolish it.
But one thing that nobody's addressing, the time period that it takes to get a property back. That means that's one more house because most of this takes place in low to moderate income neighborhoods. The city of Philadelphia has a shortage of low and moderate decent housing. So now, and these squatters don't generally, they don't take the border, they go to a boarded up place, but it's generally the ones that's being rehabbed. So that means that property is now off the market for anywhere from a year to a year and a half. That's all, so something should be done.
My daughter usually go pick up the mail, and she went there one day and couldn't get into the property because the lock was changed. And so she rang the bell, and when she rang the bell, came this lady that said that she was living there, and she said, "Are you kidding me?" And she said, "Yes, I have a lease," which happened to be a fraudulent lease. So these people, because I researched this a lot and did a lot of research on it, and found out that they're told to produce a fraudulent lease to the police, and then the police would say, "Well, we don't know whether it's fraudulent." When my daughter talked to her, tried to be nice to her, she said, "You know, I'll leave tomorrow, go bring me some money." My daughter said, "We are not landlord. We can't take money from you. We can't take money from you." She said, "Go bring me some money, I'll give you the key." I mean, can you imagine that? And laughing in my daughter's and son-in-law face and said, "We're getting out of here because you can't get us out till we go to court."
I had another house where they were in there for a little while, go for our weekly inspection, and all the windows are gone. That beautiful rehabbed house had feces all over the walls, the plumbing stolen, the heater stolen. Cost our clients thousands and thousands of dollars to restore it.
People squatting in our house, 10 people. We entered into the legal process. Then we're told the DA's office can do nothing. License inspection, nothing. Police department, nothing. We finally hire a lawyer. Pay for it, hire him. Told to give them 20 days. Okay? All right, then there's another 10 days. And there's another service. I got to pay for another service, another 10 days. 150 days in now, they're still there today.
Years ago, I was getting my house renovated to move in with my mother, who was diagnosed with dementia. My father had passed away. I hadn't been there for maybe 10 days around the holidays. The work had stopped. The only thing left to be done on the house was to put pipes in. We were changing from copper to PVC. There was a tentative agreement of sale for $199,000. I lost that. When I went to the house to check on it, there was black material covering all the windows. I had the windows open with black material. I called the police. There was a woman in her 40s and a young kid, maybe in his 20s. She said, when the police came, she said she had a lease. I never got to see it. It was a crumpled piece of paper from what I could see. The police said they couldn't do anything. I said, well, I can get the deed to my house, and it was so obvious that they didn't belong there. The back door was kicked in. The other locks were changed. There were air mattresses in the house. There was no water. They had gallons of water, and that's it, in the refrigerator. The house smelled like a urinal. And there was used condoms all throughout the house and outside on the property.
When squatters illegally occupy a property, there's a ripple effect, which takes its toll not only on the property itself, but an entire neighborhood. The safety of adjacent properties and the quality of life on a given block are immediately compromised when squatters move in. There is a considerable risk to the owner of the property if he or she attempts to assert their rights, and more so to adjacent occupants who have to deal with this on a daily basis.
Situations lend itself to a declining or eroding tax base and a declining, eroding housing stock. So the very people who might benefit from having safe, secure properties, these are properties that end up being destroyed, pipes being removed, all the way down the line, all these different problems, and it does not help the city of Philadelphia a little bit. Something needs to.
One lease actually said it was between the tenant and the landlord. The landlord's name was Real Ator, 2 words, Real Ator. Like, and the police, even the policeman said to me, like, who actually would